A fisherman drifts on calm water when a wild dolphin surfaces beside his boat, nudging something toward him. Not trash, not a fish, but a newborn calf tangled in fishing line, barely breathing. The mother circles nearby, watching closely, as if she somehow understands this stranger on the water might be able to do something she physically can't. This isn't a one-time fluke. Across the planet, completely unrelated species keep doing the exact same thing, bringing their most fragile young straight to humans. So here's the real question. Why would a wild creature, built by evolution to fear and avoid us, walk straight up to the most dangerous species on the planet and hand over its baby? We've spent 10,000 years hunting, displacing, and occasionally taming nearly every species we've crossed paths with. By any fair evolutionary logic, animals should treat us like a threat. And yet, again and again, across species that share almost nothing biologically, we see the opposite. Trust, showing up exactly when it matters most. Let's start with cats. If you own one, you've probably lived this without realizing it. Feral cat colonies have a long, documented pattern of delivering kittens, sometimes hurt, sometimes newborn, to one very specific human. Not just anyone. The neighbor who leaves food out. The one who once pulled a thorn from a stray's paw and apparently never got forgiven for it. Now kittens keep showing up like a subscription nobody signed up for. Cats build a running mental map of who's safe and who isn't. They watch which humans stay calm and predictable, and which ones yell or chase them off. Once a human passes that test enough times, they get quietly reclassified, from possible threat to something close to an honorary member of the colony. Now here's where it gets strange, because the exact same test-then-trust pattern shows up in animals nowhere near as tame as a backyard cat colony. Whales and dolphins have a well-documented habit of approaching boats specifically when an injured calf is involved, and it rarely looks accidental. Researchers have described mother whales holding an injured calf right against a boat and simply waiting, almost like handing off a job. Dolphin and whale pods already practice shared babysitting and coordinated rescue among their own kind, so stretching that same instinct across species isn't as big a leap as it sounds. There's also a quieter detail people miss. Human distress responses are unusually gentle and consistent. Slow movements, quiet voices, careful hands around anything hurt or vulnerable. Animals read body language extremely well, and a species that reliably answers vulnerability with gentleness instead of aggression eventually earns a different reputation entirely. Birds deserve more credit here too. Crows and magpies have brought injured or abandoned chicks toward humans who'd shown some earlier sign of caretaking. Crows in particular have memory that would embarrass most humans. They recognize individual faces for years and hold on to both grudges and loyalty. If a crow decides you're one of the good ones, that trust can outlast the crow itself, passed down to its own offspring before they've even met you. This hints at something bigger, trust that isn't just personal, but inherited. A young animal raised near a parent who trusts a certain human may simply absorb that judgment. Now here's a big piece that ties much of this together. Domestication didn't just change animals physically, it rewired how they process trust altogether. Dogs are the clearest example. A mother dog who trusts her owner will often carry newborn puppies over one by one and set them down at that person's feet. 15,000 years of evolving alongside humans means dogs filed us under pack member a long time ago, and pack members get access to the puppies. That same wiring occasionally spills into wild populations too. Wolves, coyotes, even foxes showing unusually low fear near humans in places with long histories of peaceful coexistence. Elephants might be the most emotionally heavy example of all. Their memory is enormous, and their social bonds run for generations. There are documented cases of elephant herds approaching rangers or sanctuary workers with an injured calf, almost as if requesting medical help directly. In several sanctuaries, mothers have presented an injured calf, then stepped back and simply waited, sometimes for hours, clearly expecting intervention. Elephants have recognized former caretakers after 10 years apart, reacting in ways that look a lot like genuine emotional memory. A clear pattern starts forming here. Nearly every example involves strong memory, social complexity, and some history of low-threat contact with humans. It's not random animal behavior. It's closer to a slow-building trust algorithm, tested case by case, generation by generation. But there's a less romantic layer too. Sometimes bringing a baby to a human isn't a thoughtful gesture. It's pure desperation. A predator threat, a flooding den, an injury she can't treat. In that moment, she may simply move toward the nearest large, slow, non-predatory shape nearby. That shape is often us. We're loud and we smell like sunscreen, soap, and questionable fast food, none of which reads as predator the way an actual threat scent would. Even that desperation-based trust still requires a calculated risk assessment, one that, historically, we haven't always deserved. Somehow, despite our mixed track record, we keep getting coded as a viable emergency option across an enormous range of unrelated species. Scent plays a role too. Humans carry a specific chemical signature: soap, sweat, food, detergent, and animals with strong scent memory catalog that the same way they'd catalog a trusted member of their own group. Once a human's scent gets filed under safe, it can stay in an animal's memory for a surprisingly long time, even after just a few encounters. Here's something that ties the whole topic together. Humans are oddly good at recognizing distress calls, even from species we've never heard before. A crying human baby and a whimpering puppy trigger nearly identical instinctive reactions in us. Faster heartbeat, immediate attention, the urge to help. Some researchers think this caretaking instinct isn't limited to our own species. It might leak outward toward other animals young as well. If animals have picked up generation after generation that humans respond to distress with help instead of harm, that reputation becomes worth exploiting, even across species lines. Primates take this even further. Chimpanzees and certain monkeys near long-term research stations have brought injured infants directly to familiar researchers. Primates already practice something called alloparenting. Infants cared for by aunts, older siblings, even unrelated trusted adults, not just the mother. Extending that same logic toward a calm, predictable, long-term human observer isn't that big a leap once the troupe has watched them for years. There's an entire field of study around what's called the safe haven hypothesis. Animals forming an attachment-style bond with specific humans. Animals with this bond don't just tolerate a person, they actively seek them out during stress, the same way a frightened toddler runs toward a parent. Notice this pattern shows up almost always during real medical emergencies: an injury, an entanglement, a wound, never just casual hanging out. That's not blind trust. That's something closer to outsourcing a problem to a specialist, a surprisingly advanced move for a wild animal. This trust is never universal, though. Hunted populations and animals in high conflict zones with humans show none of this behavior at all. Animals aren't trusting humanity as a whole. They're trusting you specifically, the one who moved slowly, left food out, and didn't panic during the last encounter. It builds like a feedback loop. One good interaction gets remembered, passed down, and the next generation starts with a slightly lower fear response. It's not magic. It's small, repeated evidence stacking up until an animal finally looks at a person and decides, this one's probably fine. So why do animals bring their babies to humans? Not because we've earned some universal trust. Our track record is far too messy for that. It's because, case by case, across an enormous range of species, individual animals have built individual files on individual humans. And some of us keep passing the test. Every quiet, careful moment near something wild and frightened becomes a tiny data point in a ledger none of us even knew we were building. And once in a while, when the stakes are highest, that ledger gets cashed in, and a person ends up holding a kitten, a calf, or a chick, wondering how they became the chosen one. There's one last layer worth mentioning. This behavior changes us too. Rangers who've lived through it often call it one of the most meaningful moments of their careers. Conservation researchers now study these trust-based moments as real indicators of ecosystem health, proof of lower conflict and longer histories of coexistence in that area. So next time you see a dolphin nudging an injured calf toward a boat, or a stray cat proudly delivering kittens to a porch, don't just file it as a cute video. File it as proof that on a planet full of species with every reason to fear us, We somehow convinced a few of them we were worth the risk.